Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter. This is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happens. So today we start a brand new campaign that eventually became called Of the Mountain. So sort of like Ego Draconis, Eye of the Dragons. This is Of the Mountain. Now, my players didn't know this right away, and they couldn't possibly have, but this was actually a sequel to Zombie Town, the campaign that we just got finished talking about, that with the Paladins and Lord Minor and all the rest, so 7 years go by from the end of that campaign to, like, the start of this one. Not in game time, but in real life. So Lord Minor and his machinations have been laid to rest for almost a decade in terms of me sitting behind the screen DMing, only for him to re-emerge in this campaign, but we will see to that when we get to it. So let's meet our heroes, shall we? And I've got all this paperwork here because I forget names, I forget stuff. So if you hear me stop talking and hear, it's because I'm checking my notes, sorry. I gathered up a group of 4 people that were actually a lot of fun to play with. I had Taryn, the half-elf fighter. I had Tannen, the human wizard. I had Arntor, the dwarven cleric, and Adrian, the human rogue. So 2 T's and 2 A's. It was actually very difficult for me to work out who was who, because these were complete strangers that I met over the internet through YouTube stuff, that I asked, looking for group, and these people popped up straight away. So I'm like, okay, let's play. But I ended up with a fighter, a wizard, a cleric, and a rogue. And this campaign was based around a very simple idea, and that is that I hate collection quests. Whether it be, Legend of Zelda, collect the spiritual stones and then collect all the sage seals, or Final Fantasy, collect the orbs of the elements or the elemental crystals or whatever the hell, it's even like my favorite video game of all time, Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast, was a freaking crystal collecting quest. And I tried to get to the bottom of that. I was like, why do I hate that? Why do I hate go collect the thing campaigns so much? And I thought, well, it's because they don't do anything. If anything, it's like the grains of sand in an hourglass saying, this is how much longer you have to play this fun game. And I was like, well, yeah, kinda. It's like, if we go, and it's like, go collect the 8 elemental crystals. It's like fire, water, earth, air, metal, magic, dark, and light. And then, say you're like halfway through your quest, or 3/8 of the way through. You've got the elemental crystal of fire, and you're supposed to be so excited because it looks so cool, and you pick it up and you hold it up and it glows and fills you with a sense of accomplishment. And then you look at your DM and you go, well, what does it do? And he goes, nothing. It just sits in your bag doing diddly squat until you get the other 7 or the other 5 or whatever, and then at the end, when you have all the crystals, then the door opens, or you seal the Dark Lord away, or you open the ancient vault or whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, when you're doing a collection quest, is the only thing those collectibles do, despite what the narrative says, the only thing those crystals or orbs or whatever the hell do is end the game. Because think about it, anytime you're collecting elemental crystals or seals or medallions or rings or whatever other bullshit, they can be anything, they're MacGuffins. When you have them all, you accomplish your goal and the game ends. So not only do they sit in your inventory and do nothing, but when you have them all, you can't play anymore. So not only are they not interesting, but it's basically, you got everything? Okay, we're done. That sucks. I hate that. So, I think Paper Mario did it right. The Paper Mario 64, you were going around collecting stars, and whenever you collected a star, you would get like a super move with it to, clear the screen of enemies, or heal yourself a whole bunch, or do any number of other things. They each represented like an ultimate attack that you could do. That's a collection quest done correctly. But think of any like cookie cutter D&D game you've ever played where you're collecting medallions or rings or swords or relics or artifacts or whatever the hell it happens to be. They don't do anything, and when you get them all, the game ends. So they're the opposite of fun. Like philosophically speaking, it's like they're supposed to be big, important, priceless artifacts, and I was like, how can I make that fun? It kind of became like a challenge accepted sort of moment. I was like, I hate that. How can I make it fun? And I was like, well, if I was going to send my players around to collect like ancient relics or crystals or something, I would have to make them like super overpowered items of awesome. Like when they find it and they pick it up and they're like, what does it do? And then I'd name a whole bunch of weird shit or overpowered crap that it would do. And they're like, oh my god, that's awesome. I'm never going to unequip this. You know, that's what relics and crystals and orbs and crap need to do. Like if I lost my damn mind and decided to do a collect the elemental crystals quest, you know what I'd do? Is I'd say, oh, you found the elemental crystal of fire. So now once a day, you can conjure up a sword made of magma. And so long as you're holding it, you can cast any spell that does fire damage in any of the books. As though you were a 5th level wizard. Oh my god! That's like 20 different spells plus a conjured weapon plus elemental damage. Is like, that's... You know, and that could be the dinkiest one. You know, maybe the elemental crystal of air or whatever lets you ride the breeze and, you know, you can teleport up to 500 miles and so long as you're holding it, you get water breathing and, you know, all kinds of crap. You know, you have to endow whatever artifacts you happen to be collecting. So if I was doing a weird so-and-so collect the crystals quest, you'd be fucking overpowered within the first 3 sessions because I hate collection quests. They're so boring. So I had to try my hand at it, of course, and when I did Goddess Wheel, that was about collecting journal pages or like history book pages, but at least then, you know, you were getting like more lore that went through the world. Now it's kind of weak at best, you know, not the best campaign I ever did do, but I was like, okay, what if I want to do that more directly? Like I say, go collect these relics, but while you're collecting them, say you've got one of the 5, that one relic is going to be super awesome and do all these different things for you and make you feel like a badass. You know, that's kind of what I wanted to get across. That I could take that tired old concept and maybe make it work. So, Of the Mountain is what spun out of that, because that was a collect the 5 relics campaign. And before you click away or hit the snooze button on me, hear me out. Because this campaign turned out kind of interesting, and you already know Lord Minor's going to be there, so hopefully he's enough to draw your attention. So, I've got the kind of the intro that I gave my players. Like, this is what the campaign's going to be. This is like the setting, so I'm just going to read it to you. It says, the 100-year war between elves, humans, and dwarves is over. Peace treaties have been signed, border lines have been drawn, and all the nations are retreating to lick their wounds and rebuild for a few generations. The dwarves, while the most highly victorious, also took the most damage to their civilization. Their vast army is down to 250,000 soldiers. They've chosen to retreat to the light under the mountain, the dwarven capital of Anvil. Now, if you know the name Anvil and you're wondering where that's from, it's from Ocean Rim. When they crossed the bridge of Teratheon, there was a dwarven capital called Anvil, or Anvilton. It's the same setting. Has nothing to do with Ocean Rim, I just like to stick them on the same map. The dwarven capital city of Anvil. However, an army that vast only moves as fast as its slowest supply cart. So with many returning, it will take a month or two to receive everyone. However, Due to all the war efforts and the extreme strain of resources, the capital is simply not ready to receive so many refugees and returning veterans. Filled to the bursting, it will fill with crime and chaos within a matter of weeks. And so, it was decided that the Dwarven Relics must be retrieved. What are the Dwarven Relics, you may ask? Vast resources of magic and power that will help the city build, stabilize, and stretch to receive their countless honored returning soldiers. But they were buried decades ago, and only scraps of information about them are available to the public. You have been called forward by Dwarven elders that were there 100 years ago when the war started and the relics were sealed away for safekeeping by the then king Saurik, also called Saurik the Wise, or Saurik the First. To keep them out of enemy hands, in the case the dwarves should be eradicated, they were hidden deep in the many tunnels of the mountain, where it was never written, but passed down to a very special few. You must retrieve these powerful artifacts before the army of the dwarves returns to the capital. If not, then anarchy will reign in the Dwarven Kingdom at the hands of its own returning soldiers. So we have a time limit, we have 5 things to go get, and we don't have a map or anything, we just have people to talk to. So the relics themselves were statted. They were objects of power that could do things while you were searching for the others. So they could pursue these in almost any order, but thanks to somebody who was helping them out, they did so in a specified order. Because you would need 1 or 2 of the first few relics to get the final ones. So it was kind of in order, kind of not, to pursue these things. So like I said before, we ended up with Terran the Fighter, Tannen the Wizard, Arntor the Cleric, and Adrian the Rogue. And while yes, we are just now emerging out of war times in a dwarven city with dwarven relics and dwarven lore, only one of them wanted to be a dwarf. I was like, if none of you guys are dwarves, you're not going to be able to find a place to stay. Nobody's going to want to talk to you. This nation's been at war with humans and elves for 100 years. You think they're not going to kick your asses every time they see you in a dark alley. But one of them rolled a dwarf, so I didn't have to worry about it. So he had to be like, oh, don't worry, guys. They're with me. Poor Arntor. And because he was a cleric, people kind of took his word for it. So I forget what god he had, if it was like Sylvanus or something like that. Within the confines of the city under the mountain, Anvil, there was something called the Golden Circle. And the Golden Circle was the circle cul-de-sac. That's what I wanted. It was the cul-de-sac of like cathedrals and churches and holy sites that were all in one place in Anvil with the gods that kind of got along. So Sylvanus, Moradin, Paylor, all the lawful good, goody-goodies that would join hands and sing Kumbaya if they were all together. So all the religions are like good, lawful good, neutral good, and there's 5 or 6 of them. I'm pretty sure Arntor was a cleric of Sylvanus, but that's like justice and light and the not quite Judeo-Christian, but pretty close. A good thing to base your cleric or your paladin around. But they're there at the Golden Circle, or the Circle of Light, or whatever you want to call it, being talked to by their benefactor, Milo Beetlebeard. Now, Milo Beetlebeard they ended up calling him Dwarf Pope because he was the most highly ranked religious figure, the great holy man of Anvil. He had the king's ear. He could walk down the street and kids would ask him for blessings and stuff like that. So they ended up calling him Dwarf Pope, even though there are 5 or 6 different religions that live in harmony here. He was a a retired paladin of Moradin. So he got old. He traded out his armor for, like, priest vestments. He could give you your final rites. He could preside over funerals or weddings and stuff like that. His adventuring days are long over. And in this setting, dwarves can live to be, like, 200 or 300 years old. So he's getting up there in dwarf years. And now and then, like, a bug will crawl out of his beard because he's Milo Beetle. You know, another bug, squish. This is so fucking embarrassing. But Milo explains all this stuff, that the army of, 250,000 dwarves with battle wounds and, burying the dead and stretched resources is on its way to Anvil, and the city is not going to be able to sustain that many people with the resources they've got. So the 5 Dwarven Relics must be unearthed and brought back, or else, anarchy is going to reign in the streets with people looking for places to stay, food, medical supplies, water, etc., etc. And they go, well, what are these relics about? What do they do? It's like, well, these are basically going to help us generate resources or ways to stabilize the city in such a way that we will be able to take this army in. And I gave them like a minimum time. I think the bare minimum number of days was like 32 days, so like a month they could be here. And then I rolled some dice to add some days, so it's like, 30 days plus, 2d10 days or whatever it happened to be. They didn't know when they were going to get there, but they had at least a month to work with. So they have a time limit. They can't just fuck around. So they've got 5 relics to find, ready, set, go. And Milo tells them that the first relic is called the Staff of the Harvest. Now, the Staff of the Harvest, if it is wielded properly, over a field of corn or any other kind of vegetation, will instantly bring whatever that crop is to fruition. So you could go throw some seeds on the ground and wave the Staff of the Harvest over it, and shazam, you've got, a whole field worth of corn or a whole field worth of pumpkins or whatever it happens to be. And this will generate a vast amount of food in a very short time, which would be great because we've got, 250,000 hungry guys coming home, and we're going to need as much as we can. Now, it doesn't generate plants, so, you would have to still, like, sow the seeds across the entire field, wave the staff, it takes a couple of days to go collect it all, and then they would have to reseed the field, and then go out, wave the staff, and it would grow another crop. So basically, if they got it on day 1, they could probably have enough time for 6 or 7 extra harvests. That would be fantastic. They're not gonna get it on day 1, but you get what I mean. It takes a few days to harvest and replant, but so long as the seeds are there, the Staff of the Harvest, just instantly, it's harvest time. Amongst other things, but in order to find out what the other things are, they have to go get it. So Milo sends them over to find someone named Jacob Silvercrest, a very old dwarf that was around during the times that the 100-Year War started, and the Dwarven Relics were sealed away. So again, all the lore, all the locations were passed down not by paper and treasure maps, but by word of mouth to a very lucky few, or to the people that sealed them away in general. So Jacob Silvercrest, of course, lives in an old folks' home. He's being taken care of. He's playing checkers and bingo, and he's a nice old man, etc., etc. And they bring the missive from Milo Beetlebeard, and he goes, here we're going to recover the Staff of the Harvest. Can you tell us anything about it? And he says that he had a hand in the creation of the dungeon that held the staff. And he gives them a few kind of cryptic clues to be on, to kind of be on their way. And they go, really? It's like a dungeon, like a randomly generated dungeon? He goes, well, no. Dwarven relics are so very rare and valuable, we can't just throw it in a vault, because as soon as they crack the vault, then there it is. So no, a series of traps and mechanisms and and nasty things were built around it to protect it from being stolen. Because if the dwarves lost the war and they come down here to pillage Anvil, you know, giving the enemy a staff that will give them an infinite food supply is not a good idea. So we put it in this horrible dungeon and like basically sealed it away. So not only would they have to find this place, but they would have to plumb through the whole thing like a meat grinder. And by the time they get to it, you know, the catastrophic loss of life, they might just give up. So this is me like flexing my my dungeon creation muscles to make a place that doesn't have to make sense. It's just there to kill you because it's protecting this relic. So let's see, what do my notes say? Right, so Milo and, what was his name, Jacob sends them to basically a hat shop. And the hat shop has a secret passage behind it that allows them to go kind of down into the darkness deep. So we've got our fighter, our wizard, our cleric, and our rogue end up in this massive dungeon that takes them hours to go through. And I've got it here, and I've got it up on the D&D Stories Facebook if you want to see and have a look at it. But the staff, unfortunately, was just not in a treasure chest somewhere. This place was built to, like, test you, to make sure you're a dwarf, to make sure you're made of stern stuff, that you can solve logic puzzles, that you can get past monsters and all kinds of other horrible things. What I didn't know was all the players that I was playing with, not their characters, all the players that I was playing with were used to like killer DMs, like instant kill traps, you know, repeating fireball traps, rust monsters, other garbage that would just chew their characters up and spit them out. So they ran through this dungeon and they didn't touch anything. So I had like I'm not going to explain every room to you, but like the general gist of it was like, here's a treasure chest, you know, oh, we don't need that. There's a spider hanging out on the ceiling and he's going to attack us if we try to, you know, what could be in that chest? You know, here's a couple of pedestals. This one's got a golden idol on it and that one's got a silver idol on it. We're not going to touch those. We walk by. You know, we, you know, there's a secret like section of wall that comes away and there's a treasure chest sitting in the corner. Oh, it's obviously a mimic or something. We leave it there where it is. You know, what could possibly be in that chest to warrant opening it and stuff like that. And it got to the point where I was like, what are you, and I hate saying this, but do you want to play D&D or not? You know, throw that lever, open that door, look in the treasure chest, do something. And they got up to the point, like, there was even, like, a coffin that was laid out for, like, one of the dungeon builders that lost his life laying one of the nastier traps. He did it incorrectly, and he suffered the consequences. So they buried him there in, like a shrine-like area, and they put, like, a magic shield on his coffin, not like a force field, but like a shield you would carry on your arm. They put a magic shield over his coffin. I just like propped it up on there. Well, we're going to leave that shield where it is. Look, goodness knows what'll happen if we take it. I was like, oh. Yeah. And I kid you not, this was one dungeon, and I thought just to excite them, I'm going to lay down like fucking 10 magic items. Not like crazy magic items, like a +1 shield or a dagger with ghost touch, you know, here's a ring of protection +1, you know, just to kind of lavish them with magic items so that they feel good about the campaign. You know, session 1, I got a magic ring and a dagger I can stab ghosts with, and, you know, to get them excited, they didn't take anything. And I was like, what do you guys want? Come on. I don't know, just like their experience versus my like session 1 generosity or habit of giving too many magic items. They must have thought everything was trapped or something because they didn't want to touch anything. But anyway, it came to the point where they realized that the staff was not in one place. It was in several places because it was in pieces. There was the head of the staff, the length of the shaft, there was the gem that was going to be at the top, and then there was a scroll to tell them how to put it back together and like re-enchant it, you know, because when you break a magic item, it becomes mundane. But with a relic, you can put it back together and then like speak the magic words and it like activates, you know. So over time, they find, let's see, because this whole dungeon goes in a spiral downward so that it doesn't like go out and over itself or out into the city. It's very well hidden. So they ended up finding the head of the staff down this hallway that was covered with like fishing line thin razor wire, which I think they thought it was ghosts at first because they're walking down this hallway and I'm like, Arntor, you know, suddenly red lines start appearing on your nose and face and you are stopped by an unseen force. And he's like, ghosts! Ah, you know, I threw up the light spell or you know, the divine smite spell or whatever it happens to be to kind of light the place up way more than normal. I was like, it looks like fishing wire, but it's just hanging in the air. There's droplets of your blood, and they look at each other, and it's like, it's a razor wire trap. It's like, you can, you know, acrobatics your way through it, you can crawl through it at, you know, 1/10 speed, or, you know, all these other things. Like, oh, we take out our swords, and we start swinging. Who was it that was the fighter? Terran. Terran, our great sword swinging fighter, decides that he's going to just run in there with a sword and start swinging. And I was like, okay, but, you know, held that tight, you know, razor wire is going to bite you in the face. It's like cutting a guitar string. It's going to whip you. So he takes all kinds of damage trying to get to this chest at the end of the hallway, cutting through all this razor wire. I was like, ooh, that's going to hurt. But they find the head of the staff pretty easily, and they continue on through it. You know, they find a statue with a bowl, and you put water in the bowl, and then there's the gem, and, you know, just these little things to kind of get them acquainted with my DMing style, and stuff like that. And then we get to kind of like the boss encounter of the place. I set up a chaos beast near the shaft of the staff. There was like a triumphant dwarven statue like holding the staff up high like it was a bow staff or something, but it was the golden like shaft of the staff. He was holding it up high, and you have to leap across a chasm in order to get to this dwarven statue and just kind of like pull it out of his hands. And situated in the room is a chaos beast, which is like a plant Cthulhu monster. It's like it's got all kinds of vines and tentacles, and then the center is just like a massive mouth. But the bad thing about plants is that they have roots, so they are situated in one place, at least as far as that goes. I made it a plant monster, but I gave it the stats of a chaos beast. But they decided to cheese the fight. Now, they realized very quickly that they were fighting a plant monster that was dug in like through one of the walls or something, and I said, well, its tentacles and vines can reach, you know, here, here, and here, and I'm marking it on the map, basically saying that it took over the whole room. So what do? They stand outside the room where the plant monster can't reach them, and it's not going to like uproot itself and chase them. It's a plant. And its tentacles and stuff can't reach them, so they stand up in the entryway, like shooting at it and throwing alchemist fire and bullshit like that. And I was like, oh, guys, come on. So this what I thought was going to be a cool boss encounter with flailing vines and tentacles and whiplashes, and oh, he's got you all coiled up in one of its vines and all this other shit. He's pulling you closer to its mouth to gnaw you in half. No. They stood out of range outside the room and threw shit in until it died. I was like, well, fucking hell. I can't fault you for being clever, but don't expect to see anything like that ever again. So all my other bosses will be mobile, I promise. So they kill the Chaos Beast by just throwing shit at it. They had like crossbows and longbows, alchemist fire, just whatever ranged crap they could come up with without going near it. And they get the staff head, or the staff like shaft. So they've got the head and the gem and the shaft of the staff itself. Now they need the scroll to make it work. So they journey onward. They pass some more statues. They pass a magic helmet that's sitting up on a pedestal. And it was actually a very powerful magic helmet, but we'll get to that later. Again, they passed like... I was basically giving them this magic helmet. I put it on a pedestal for them to take after the boss room. Oh, it's obviously a trap. We leave it there. I was like, you fucking cowards. But they go on through, and they find a room that is full of treasure chests, like 8 or 10 of them. And they go, well, gosh, which one of these... They're obviously all mimics, but we can't just pass a room full of treasure chests. And I was like, okay, well, which one do you want to get? Which one do you want to open? And while they were talking to Jacob Silvercrest, he said that they should play the lottery and that their lucky number of the day was 8. So, 5 hours later in game time, they go, oh, there's like 8 or 10 chests here. Jacob Silvercrest told us that our lucky lottery number was 8, so we're going to open up chest number 8. And sure enough, they find the magic scroll in there. So they've got all the pieces of the staff, they got the magic scroll, they go up to like the end of the dungeon and they find this gigantic magic circle. And they undo the scroll and they're like, yeah, this is what we need right here. And so Tannen, our human wizard, puts the staff completed into the middle of the circle, and he's sitting there with the staff, and he's like, bah, 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 bah. And the staff reignites with all the holy magic that it had, with all the nature-oriented, plant-growing stuff that it was endowed with when it was first created. And I was like, all right, you guys got the Staff of the Harvest. Whenever you wave this staff over any fruit or vegetable-bearing plant, it will instantly grow huge and to fruition. And on top of that, so long as you're like wielding it, so long as you're wielding it, whatever kind of spells that you're using, you can add an extra d6. So if you're throwing a fireball, extra d6. If you're throwing a healing spell, extra d6 of healing. And they're like, wow, that's great. We're never going to unequip this. So Tannen puts it on his back. That's a heck of an upgrade for him. That's not anywhere in any of the magic item compendiums. It's just like instantly grow plants and get an extra 1d6 to all your spells that have any kind of dice throws to them. So your 3d6 fireball is now a 4d6 fireball, and your cure moderate wounds is now a cure serious wounds because we threw an extra d6 onto it and stuff like that. So they got this really powerful staff. And they're like, yes, we can grow all the food we want for the approaching army. And they leave the dungeon with some difficulty, but they leave the dungeon and get back out into Anvil. And I go, okay, guys, you got one of the artifacts. Good job. And I go, you were kind of cowardly because you left behind all the treasure that I put down there. We're going to have a talk about, being heroic. This is D&D. It's about treasure and monsters. And if you don't touch anything, you're not going to have any fun. You're not going to get any of the magic items I lay out for you. We kind of had to have a discussion there because this first session, they were such fucking cowards. But they did walk away with the staff, and that's what matters. So that was kind of the first chunk of that campaign. So 1 relic down and 4 to go. Will Anvil be saved from the 250,000 hungry, wounded guys coming home from war? Find out next time on D&D Stories. Keep gaming.
Hi guys, T here. Remember to hit that like button for me on your way out. If you'd like to see artwork and maps from my gaming table, check out the D&D Stories Facebook page. Also, I have a Patreon if you'd like to toss a few gold pieces into your humble bard's hat. Links in the description below. Keep gaming!